Well, then you can tell that it's been a minute since I did the podcast because I hit the intro music after it already started playing, and then I hit the stop button instead of lowering the volume like I normally do. So we're off to a great start. Welcome to the Sober Heathen podcast. I am Scott, the Sober Heathen. Glad to be back in the chair. It's a new setting if you've watched the videos before. Work in progress, getting the tapestry behind me up and looking fancy, but I think it looks pretty good. I think we did a pretty good job. You can tell it's me, and you can tell what we're doing here. So today, Kim from California has joined us to tell her story. Thank you so much, Kim, for being on the podcast. I probably should have mentioned before I hit record, I was doing this live just in case any listeners have any questions. I hope that's okay. I can shut it down if you want, if you're uncomfortable with that. But anybody that's listening and wants to ask, if Kim's okay with it, please ask questions as we go along.
Right on, right on.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kim.
Well, my name's Kim. Obviously, I'm an alcoholic. I think that I was always an alcoholic, but I didn't suffer a lot of consequences until the end, and so consequently, I had a pretty decent maintenance alcoholism where I was comfortable. I hung out with people that drank a lot because people that don't drink don't really fit the lifestyle that I lived. And everything was pretty, I created a lifestyle that fit my alcoholism at the level I was at. What I wasn't aware of is that alcoholism is a progressive disease for most of us. And for me, it certainly was. And at a certain point, the progression of my disease became catastrophic. I could no longer go out and have fun because the way I drank wasn't socially acceptable. I didn't want people watching me drink the way I drank. I couldn't have people in my life that weren't also alcoholics, and the worst kind of alcoholics, because what makes me feel good is if I'm a little better than you. So I surrounded myself with alcoholics that were a little worse than me. That leads to some pretty uncomfortable social situations, some pretty, pardon my language, but fucked up relationships. If you can only bring people in that are sicker than you, things go downhill in a hurry. And I finally reached a point where I gave up my job. I gave up my marriage. My kids were adult and had never seen me sober. And I was at home drinking alone and doing the thing I never thought I'd do, getting up in the morning shaking and sick.
Yeah.
And I would stand over the sink and vomit and pour shots in myself and vomit until I could keep one down. And then I would drink till I was unconscious. And it was not living, it was a slow, pathetic death. It was a weak fucking suicide is what it was. And every day, every probably third day, I would drive uptown to the liquor store and I would go buy like 4 or 5 bottles of tequila and a cantaloupe or a roll of toilet paper, whatever.
Yeah.
That I really went there for, and this tequila was just on sale or, whatever I needed to do to make myself feel less humiliated by the fact that I was buying, 3, 4, 5 bottles of tequila at a time. But on my way there and back, I had to drive past the little Alcoholics Anonymous building in my town. I live in a really small town in Northern California. And I know who the drunks are. They know who I am. I'm pretty sure they knew what I was already. And I got this little habit where I would park across the street and watch them stand outside and smoke. And then they would all go in, and then I would go to the liquor store and I would go home. And one day I was in the liquor store after my little routine, and one of them came in and got in line behind me. So here I am with 3 bottles of tequila and a pack of cigarettes, and this lady from AA is in line right behind me. And I'm just like, there's a lot of humiliation there, a lot of shame there. And so we do that small town talk thing. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? And she asked me what I'm doing. I say, I'm getting cigarettes. Like, she can't see the 3 bottles in my hand.
Yeah.
And I say, what are you doing? And she says, I'm going to a meeting. Do you want to come? And I don't know what happened, but I said yes.
Awesome.
And I was at that stage where if I didn't get home and get a drink in me, I was going to start being sick. But I followed her to the little hall, and I walked in that little room. And, if any of you all have ever been to an AA meeting, they're disturbingly fucking happy to see you.
Right.
All these people run up, start shaking my hand, they're welcome. And I'm like, these people are weird. And now I'm really regretting that I made this decision to come in here. And
Sure.
and there's no way of backing out, because now I'm the center of attention. So I sit there and I tell myself, all right, I'll do this for 15 minutes. And then I'll make an excuse, which is how I've got through every holiday for the last 5 years. I'd show up at Christmas and then be like, oh, I got to go feed my fish. I'd show up at Mother's Day and be like, oh, I forgot, I left the stove on, because I couldn't be out in the world. And so I told myself, I'll do this for 15 minutes and then I'm getting out of here. And the 15 minutes went by and I thought, okay, I could do 15 minutes more. I'll do 15 minutes more and then I'm out of here. And I did that hour like that. And I drove home, and I took those 3 bottles and I put them in my laundry room. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to wait 15 minutes before I have a drink. And I did that. And I was getting pretty sick. And I thought, it's okay. If I still feel this bad in 15 minutes, I'll have a drink. And I did that all fucking night.
Wow.
And I got really sick. And I didn't know at the time that you could die from not drinking.
Sure.
I had a little seizure. I shouldn't laugh. It's not fun. It's not funny unless you've been there.
I get it.
But I did 15 minutes at a time until the next meeting. And I put on lipstick, like that made a difference. And I drug my ass back in there. And by then I was really bad off. I hadn't slept. My eyes felt like raisins in a desert. I was starting to see little things around the edge of my vision. But I sat through another meeting and I listened to those people talk, and I thought, these people don't even drink. Like, why are they quitting? They were telling their story, and I was still at the point where what I saw was differences. And I felt like, there are a lot of women that show up at AA, and I'm not disparaging anybody at all. If you come to the table and you quit drinking because you drink a half a bottle of wine at night, I thoroughly applaud you getting there before you reach a worse stage of your life.
Sure.
But it was hard to listen to people that were quitting when what sounded to me like they were still having fun, whereas I was not having fun. And, at that point in my life, I knew that I was going to quit drinking or I was going to die. And I didn't really care which one of those 2 things happened. Now, I wasn't looking to die, but I wasn't fucking looking to quit drinking either.
Yeah.
I just knew it was going to go one of two ways. And so I kept doing that. My life is a gift of grace in 15 fucking minutes. 15 minutes. I made it through the first 60 days, 15 minutes. I would tell myself, over and over again. Have you ever seen the movie The Princess Bride? I think it was called. There was this dude. Every night, this guy tells him, "Good night, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning." And that was me. Every day, I'd be like, "Okay, tomorrow I can go back. Tomorrow I'll just go back to my drinking. I'll go back and I'll drink again." Because I knew I couldn't really quit. I mean, I'd done all the things before to quit, and I had never quit. So I knew, like I know the sun's going to come up, that I was going to drink again. And I didn't want a sponsor, and I didn't want to do any steps, and I didn't fall into the category where I was going to be saved by God. Yay, if that works for you, do it by all means.
Yeah.
I don't care what keeps you alive. But I knew that none of that was going to work for me. But this kind woman, she's kind of butch, kind of rough. Finally, on around day 60, 65, she was like, "Have you got a sponsor yet?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Great, I'm your sponsor." And I was like, "Is that how that works?" Like, wasn't I supposed to? And luckily, she was kind of a lot like me. She put vitamin C in vodka to be healthy. So we rolled pretty tight together, and she didn't mind that I was not hip to a lot of the concepts that seemed really important. And she told me, she said, "The one thing that's really important is that you don't drink." She said, "We're going to do these steps, and you're going to do them to the best of your ability, and you're going to do them because you're willing. And if you get better, great. What's the worst that happens? You go back to your old life." And I still tell myself that sometimes. I can have my old life back anytime. The great thing that I got from AA was, for the first time in about 15 years, I have a choice.
Right.
I can choose to drink anytime I want. I can get up and choose to take my old life back anytime I want. I didn't have a choice. I drank because I had to. I gave up relationships because I had to. I was incarcerated. I was, so many things happened to me that I didn't have a choice around when I was an alcoholic. And that's not to say I'm not an alcoholic now. I'm not going to get into that whole recovery thing. That's another bullshit pull you apart game.
Yep.
I don't dwell on whether there's a God. I don't care why I'm a drunk. Like, I don't know if it was good parents, bad parents, good friends, bad friends. I've seen alcoholics from all walk of life. I think that it's like skin cancer. You get the gene. Okay, cool. But then after that, it's exposure. And sure, I had the gene, but I chose that level of exposure. And, I sucked up all the radiation of all the alcohol I could. And hey, guess what? I got the melanoma. So, I don't get married to things I can't figure out anymore. And I don't have expectations. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. I still suffer with a lot of expectations, but I've learned to recognize when I'm doing that. And because early on in sobriety, I knew that I could only be happy if I regained my children's respect, if I could take care of my legal problems, if I could solve my financial problems and get back into the field of work that I wanted. I had a lot of conditions that
Yeah.
I needed to be sober. And what's funny is I don't have any of those things that I thought I had to have. Well, that's not true. My children love and respect me, but that came in their time, not in mine. Um, but the life that I thought I needed to be sober and to stay sober, I was completely wrong about. And for what I have and for what I don't have, I'm sincerely grateful now, you know, and I'm not I'm not a huge fan of there are things in AA that still rub me the wrong way.
Sure.
Because it's run by people. There are people in small groups and small towns, and I'm sure in big groups and big towns that irritate me. But the reality is that I did the thing. I did the 12 steps. I built relationships with other sober people. I created a life where I do include some spirituality, my kind of spirituality, which is definitely kind of the hippy dippy variety,
Oh, yeah.
because I'm in Northern California and that's how we roll. And I'm sober today. And if you had met me before, you would understand what an unusual thing that is. And so I continue to do the things. I go to sobriety events. I work with other alcoholics. I still do. Uh, I have an evening practice and a morning practice of meditation and prayer. And to me, those things are probably a lot different than they are to other people. But I don't know what part of what I did gave me the opportunity to live, because I wasn't a person initially who earned it. And I knew I wasn't a person who deserved it. And I've learned since then that sobriety isn't for people who want it, and it's not for people who deserve it. It's for people that fucking do it, you know? And I don't know what it was that I did that gave it to me. So I keep doing, you know, because when I drank, you keep doing what you do and you keep getting what you're getting. And I'm sober now. So I keep doing what I'm doing so that I'll keep getting what I'm getting. My dad used to say, he was old school. He was a very old person when I was born, that you dance with the one that brung you. So while I dabble in a lot of Buddhist recovery, I have done a lot of therapy, but I still go to the dance with AA because that's who brought me the gift initially, you know. And at this point in my life, it's all about where I'm taking it now. I just joined up, got my volunteer paperwork done for hospitals and institutions, so that I'll be going into California Youth Authority, taking meetings to people like me, perhaps before they have to do all of the humiliating things.
Sure.
And into the California state prisons, for women like me, that to give them a chance to see where things could be different when they get out, because it's rough. I know it's rough. It's rough when you've been incarcerated. It's rough coming out and rejoining the world, So I do a lot of sobriety oriented stuff and not to look good, not because I feel like it makes, people think I'm cool, but because I do owe something and I can't, you know, the life I have is an unrepayable debt. It's an unrepayable debt. But and it's funny, I'm I'm in my early 50s. And so I don't um and like I said, I live in a small town. And so I was branching out, trying to find new ways to bring recovery into my life, the stories of people that I don't know. Because if you go to the same meeting in a small town, you start to, like, I could tell you the story of everybody at my meeting verbatim. And so I got onto the internet and I was looking around and I found you on Twitter. And then I started listening to your podcast. And so I went back to the beginning, and I absolutely fell in love with it because the early recovery, listening to you go through everything, sometimes it gets easy to forget what I am and where I come from. After you get a few years under your belt, and I'm only 5, I don't have a lot of time. But there's that little voice in my head that comes back every once in a while that says, hey, you know what? You've been well for a long time. You could probably have a beer. You know,
Yeah.
there are people that know me in my job now that don't know me, that don't understand what I was before, that never saw any of that. And they go out and have a cocktail together. And so there's that lying part of myself, and trying to go back into an earlier stage of my alcoholism almost killed me over and over, because I kept thinking that I could just drink at weddings, or I could just drink on vacation, or I could, and that never worked out for me. But when I went back and listened to all your old podcasts, it was like a walk through the early years of sobriety, where there's all of who I am. I hear it in every alcoholic. I hear a little bit of me in every alcoholic. And I have a love and an empathy for drunks that I don't have for regular people.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows the way we've lived the way we do, And so through finding you on Twitter and then finding your podcast, I found a whole kingdom, like a wealth of people I don't know, telling my story all over from the beginning. And I feel like I just jumped in. It's been the best gift for me at this stage in my sobriety, to be able to be back with newcomers, to be back with the people, because that's where it lives. That's where you're getting the gift. That's where it's hitting the hardest.
Yep.
Is in those early days. There is nobody I'd rather talk to than somebody inside their first year, the first 20 days, the first 30 days.
Yeah.
That's where it's hitting. That's where the fucking wisdom is just dropping on you every day.
Yep.
At this point, I don't get a lot of new revelations in my life. I mean, I learn shit. I learn it the hard way, but it doesn't come to me the way that it did in early sobriety. And watching people wake up and find themselves and find their lives and regain all that, it lets me remember what I am. And that's what's going to save my life in the end. Because as soon as I forget, in the beginning of AA, I don't know if it's in all meetings, but a lot that I've been to, they read these openings, but there's some truths in there. We get worse, never better, followed always by a still worse relapse. I've seen it, I've lived it. And the only way I know to fight it off is by putting myself in the company of people that are in the deep end of the fight. And that's people that are younger than me in sobriety. That's that's where the fucking magic is, pardon my language, but that's
Don't
where
worry
it
about it.
is. And so anyway, I've been really enjoying it. You know, I live 45 minutes from everything. When you live in a little town, like if I want to go to Costco, it's an hour and a half north. And so I listen to podcasts now all the way there and all the way back.
Awesome.
And through your podcast, I have found the podcasts of some other people that I'm really enjoying. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for bringing a freshness and a vitality to my sobriety that might keep me alive another 5 years, you know?
Yeah, thank you for all that. I mean, um, that was awesome, by the way. I mean, seriously, like, uh, so many things you said, just in the beginning, the 15 minutes at a time, you know what I mean? And did anybody in AA tell you to do that, or was that something that you just did on your own?
Nobody told me that. They told me go to meetings and don't drink in between, you know? And for me, that not drinking to the next meeting, we only have one meeting a day here at 7 p.m. And I couldn't make it from the minute I woke up.
Yeah.
You know, you hear in recovery people talk about triggers, and I've always been like, what triggered me was breathing. If I
Me-
woke up, I needed a goddamn drink.
Consciousness,
And
yeah, yeah.
and so I couldn't make it from 7 to 7. And so I just kept telling myself 15 minutes. And if it's this bad in 15 minutes, I'll get a drink. I'll get a drink. And then and it's funny because that is oddly, it's like a little mantra for me now. I can do anything for 15 minutes.
Right.
I can do anything for 15 minutes. When things are really bad, I had a couple of health issues in sobriety. Um, I come from a large family. Two of my sisters got breast cancer, and I had to take them down to UCSF, do the whole surgery treatment. One of my sisters got an aneurysm and had to have emergency brain surgery.
Ugh.
Just, it's been some crazy shit. But I stayed sober. And for me, sometimes it's still 15 minutes. I can do this for 15 minutes. When I'm at my job and some idiot is making me want to give them a real thick dose of the truth, I tell myself, you know what? You can sit here and smile for 15 more minutes. It doesn't matter. And so, I mean, I wish somebody had given that to me, but at the time it was all I could imagine, because I knew I wasn't going to make it an hour.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to make it a day. And I certainly wasn't going to stop drinking forever.
Sure.
Which seems, I mean,
Terrifying.
who does that?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
So,
Yeah.
15 minutes, it worked for me. It worked for me.
Yeah, I just think it's important to point out to anybody that listens in early sobriety that, the strength, you do have the strength within. You just have to find that thing that works for you. And you did that on your own, and you did it in the meeting. It started just by walking in the doors, and yeah, I'm just like you. AA got the ball rolling. And now I've evolved from that. I have no use for the old timers that come from a place of authority and superiority. I have no use for those guys whatsoever. I get it. You've been sober for 36 years, but it's not, that's what turns a lot of people away. When you come at them like, well, you have to do it my way or you ain't gonna make it. You gotta do it exactly what the book says. Well, it's like, dude, I don't even think you've read the book, because a lot of times you're coming at it with so much ego that you clearly missed that word in the book several times. So
Right.
I just think it's really great that 15 minutes, I think that was really great. I relate so much to everything you said. I'd go in and buy 4 bottles myself, and I'd say, yep, I'm meeting my 3 buddies. And these people, they knew, I mean, you're not in there drinking with your buddies every single day, buying a bottle every single freaking day, for your buddies. But we're convinced, I would do the same thing. I get to throw a hat on, you know what I mean? I put on a nice shirt. Yeah, I'm buying all these bottles, going to golf and going to hit the links today. you know what I mean? And I remember the puking, I remember the choking down the drink and throwing it up and trying not to throw it up and swallowing the puke. I mean, the effort to maintain that drink was tremendous, and it takes, you know, an equal and opposite effort to beat it. For me now, you know, I'm going to be doing some, I don't have 2 years yet, so I can't do the recovery coach thing. So I got hired in as an associate. So I watch people do their drops for drug court. That's a healthy reminder that I never want to have to go back to that. And then,
Right.
you know, starting this week and so on, people that are getting in trouble for the first or second time are going to come in and sit down and talk to me. And holy crap, am I blessed to have that reminder every single day. You know what I mean? Like, man.
Right.
Gosh, just great stuff. You know what I mean? And you know, he apologized a couple times for dropping the F-bomb, but fuck that. You know, I mean, that's authentic. That's let people know that you're a real person and you're just not regurgitating some crap that they hear every single day. I think that's how people get hooked on that. So I'm really glad that you found me on Twitter, and I'm really glad that that led to finding other people, because there are awesome people on Twitter. This community, I mean, you know, you'll get outside things trying to weasel its way in your feed through the algorithm or whatever. But if you can stay in that recovery community on Twitter, it is amazing.
Yeah, it's been a real gift to, you know, and I, don't get me wrong, I love my friends in my town, and I enjoy the company. And like I said, I still do a lot of sobriety events. Travel a lot. And that's another thing, is that I didn't realize that that I had given up all of that, you know,
Yeah.
that in sobriety, like my last vacation before I quit drinking, I was in the Caribbean, and I look at the pictures from that trip and I was so miserable. Um, Hating life in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And now I go places and I remember it. You know, and I'm not trying to figure out how to get back home, get back to the bottle. Like it's not, you know, we go out on the lake, we spend all day out on the lake now. I take people, I travel to a lot of different sobriety related events here in Northern California. We go up north to Crescent City and there's a sobriety by the sea. We go east. I went to some little rinky dink out over on I-5 sobriety in the Siskiyous. It was it was a whole town of tweakers with this like really cogent, really together little group of sober people. And so I get the opportunity to go around and meet new people within the program, you know, out in real life. And there are those older people that are like, oh, you know, we're not doing it right. You haven't found God yet. You still don't, you know, oh, cool, cool, cool. You know, I understand that that's the way they feel,
Sure.
and they can do that, you know, they're welcome to it. But in reality, I don't let anybody step on me at a meeting anymore. You know, I used to let people with a lot of time really hurt my feelings when they didn't like the way we do our program. But the fact is, I'm still sober,
Yeah.
so I don't really give a shit what they think. You
Yeah.
know, and that's one of the things you hear a lot in AA. What you think of me is none of my business. Well, it's true, and they
Sure.
forget that. You know, people forget that your opinion of my program is just your opinion,
Yeah.
and I don't really, I don't, I don't need it, and I don't take it to heart anymore. There are bitchy people in every walk of life, and there are people that suck in AA. There are
Yeah.
people that suck in my job. There are people that suck in my building. I don't have to listen to them just because they go to a club that I go to sometimes,
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
they can think all they want about how I'm going to end up. That's cool. That's cool. You know,
Yeah,
you roll with that, bro. I
yeah,
I'm cool where I'm at. You be cool where you're at. And luckily, I was able to put together it because I do live in kind of a hippie community. The people here, there are a lot of really open-minded people. And now there are a couple meetings out in the hills around town that are intentionally agnostic, that are for heathens,
sure.
you know, for those of us who didn't who didn't fit a specific category, you know. And I think that that level of tolerance is in the book, and if you choose to ignore that, well then you know, and they need my opinion about as much as I need theirs, so we're cool.
Yeah, and the book says, we're a group of people that normally wouldn't mix. That's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Because you're that connection, that common bond. I really appreciate and I really love your acceptance. I love what you said about, and I didn't have my notepad in front of me this time, so you can tell I'm rusty, but that's why I'm remembering things as you go. But your acceptance, I really love how you said, you didn't really get to the bottom of the why, or why this happened or why this happened. And you just accepted it happened, and you've accepted that it got you to this point, and now you're here, and it really doesn't matter anymore because you're here now, right? And I really needed to hear that today, the acceptance, because there's a lot of times, people are like, you got to go talk to somebody, you got to go talk to somebody, maybe you have a problem with your dad, maybe you have a problem with your mom, maybe you have a problem with this, maybe you have a problem with that. Maybe the answer is just to say, you know what, it happened because it happened, and now I'm better, I'm better for it, I'm better today, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I really needed to hear you talk about that acceptance, and I'm glad that there's the community that you're in are more open to this. I've come to the point of just accepting, who I am, and I kind of, it might be a little ego here, but when I get into a meeting or I get around people that, look, for instance, at work, people come in and they're doing the drug test, and they're like, yeah, this guy, and I'm like, well, you don't, maybe this, you know what I mean? This guy's got like 3 OWIs. I'm like, yeah, I got 4.
Right.
Oh, you know what I mean? I like to throw it out there, when I go to meetings and I can tell that people are kind of on the churchy side. I love saying, yeah, I'm a heathen. I'm a heathen. I upgraded to heathen from atheist, so you should be happy. At least
Right.
I believe in something. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Yeah, Jared says, absolutely, thank you for that. Steen says, amen. I think they're both agreeing with the acceptance part. If I'm wrong, fellas, be a little more descriptive in your comments, but I think they're agreeing with the acceptance part, and just being happy to be where you're at. So, um,
Right.
awesome, man. I really needed this, Kim. This was the perfect one. Your story was great. I love how you're just, you're very forthcoming with things, and this is really good. If anybody that's listening, Steen says I was right. I guessed right on that one. So
Good.
your acceptance, was a huge benefit to 3 people today. So, see, this is why we need, and to comment again on you're talking about like the AA meetings. Yeah, it's great to have the people that you're familiar with. Um, you know, eh, I never liked and I kind of realized this as you were talking. They always like, you got to find your home group. You got to find your home. I disagree. I need to get other opinions, get other wisdom. I think that's what you said. Wisdom, you're
Right.
learning from those new stories and those new faces. I need all the wisdom I can fucking get, because intelligence, to be able to think things through, that did me no good. I need the wisdom to remember everything that had happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why it's critical to stay in with people that are newer. I mean, for me, I feel like that's what keeps it fresh in my mind, because it's easy to get a little cocky and a little
Yeah,
soft and feel like you're all good. And listening to the stories of newcomers that are fresh in the fight, that are really in the deep end, keeps it straight in my head what I am.
yeah,
And I have family. I have a solid group of friends around me. I've got a great support network, all that crap. But what I need is the newcomers. That's where I find myself refreshed. When people talk about the, you know, good orderly direction, good group of drunks, all of those things. For me, it's really grow or die. That's
Like
my
it.
God.
Yeah.
I have to grow. And in order to grow, I have to be exposed to something new. I don't get growth out of the same shit every day.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could say stay solid, but I'm gonna stagnate.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reach a state of like, stasis where I'm not getting any better. And the type of person I am, there has to be a certain level of excitement for what I'm doing. There has to be a feeling of freshness. A lot of what I liked about early alcoholism was that living on the edge. I liked that edge of fear. I liked that. I did. I liked the drama. I mean,
Yeah.
um, and so for me to do the same old thing with the same old people all day, every day, is just not going to be an acceptable sobriety.
Yep.
I need personal growth. I need emotional growth. I need new experiences. I do still need some fire.
Yeah.
There has to be something that lights my life up. And I find that in a lot of different places. But in the program in sobriety, where I find the real fire is in the newcomer.
Yeah.
That's they're burning hot,
Yeah.
they're burning hot. And I love that. That's what keeps me humble. They talk a lot about humility in the program, and I didn't really understand that at the time. But that's what keeps me humble, what keeps me reminded of what I really am, of what I'll really be if I forget, you know.
Sure.
And because I'm not that far away, I'm not that far away from listening to it. My alcoholism sounds like Barry White, and it's a very sexy thing. And it wants me to come back, and it tells me that it's going to be different. And, but it's always the voice of a newcomer that saves my life, always.
Yeah, and you'd said congratulations on at the 5 year mark, by the way. You said something too about not forgetting. I went from I can't wait to get to 30 days. I cannot wait to get to 90 days. I cannot wait to get to
Right.
6 months. And that, and that there's a little bit there of like that year, yay. But when people start talking like 30 years or 12 years, double digit years, I'm terrified. I'm like, you know, how am I going to remember what this was like that far away? Well, you just said it. The newcomers staying around people that fresh into it's a terrified number. Like, the farther I get away, it's like I feel like I have to keep doing this podcast to keep hearing the stories, and I'm totally thankful for my job where it's going to keep me right in the thick of it, to see it every single day. You know what I mean? Because I'm forgetful. And it's
Right.
not just because I was blackout drunk. I'm intentionally forgetful because I don't want to remember the stupid shit I did before, because I want to feel better now. And the way I thought that was those 4 little bottles every single day. Started.
Right. Right. I think that with alcoholism, and I know you're a dude, so you won't identify about this, but if there are any chicks listening, that alcoholism for me is the only other thing that's like childbirth. Like, it's the only thing that I can forget the absolute agony,
Mm,
that somehow how fucking horribly this is going to end just slips out of my mind. And I start thinking babies are cute.
right.
Babies are cute. I wouldn't mind another baby. And then, so you get pregnant, and then somewhere towards the end of those 30 whatever weeks, you have that flash where you're like, wait a minute, this thing gets out one way.
Right?
This is going to come to a very uncomfortable end. And that was me with drinking. Like I kept forgetting what would, and I would think, oh, having a cocktail would be nice. I'm going to drink a Mike's Hard Lemonade and play badminton. And I would forget the fucking bloody handcuffs,
Mm.
the way that it's the only way it's going to end. And those are the only two things where I have like that blind spot that just pops up where all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be good. And somehow my brain just pushes off to the side that there's only one way it ends.
Yeah.
And I don't like that part. I don't like it. But I'm able to forget it long enough to do it again. Too bad there's no fucking menopause for alcoholism, but you just don't, you don't get blessed with that. But the ability to forget how rancid that ending is alleviated for me by newcomers, by watching somebody sitting in the meeting shaking, but by watching somebody who can't get that fucking cup of coffee to their mouth, by listening to somebody cry because they don't think their wife is ever coming back. That is the stark reminder that that I cannot have a glass of wine at this wedding, because that's how it's going to turn out every time. If it gets to that. I had a spectacular relapse 2 years into my sobriety. I got real cocky, got real comfortable. And so I would be 7, but consequently I'm 5. And I decided, I don't even know if I could say I decided. I was driving home. I was driving past the liquor store. I stopped and I bought a bottle. And between the liquor store and my house, which are less than a block apart, I drank half that bottle in the car.
Yeah.
I woke up in the ICU because at some point, apparently, and I don't remember any of this, at some point, apparently, I said, I've got to stop, and I stopped, which led to alcoholic withdrawal cardio event where I went into AFib and I had to get flown out of here. Apparently it was real exciting, but I don't remember any of that. But I do remember waking up in this hospital and couldn't figure out why or how I got there. And the doctor coming in with all these little baby doctors. And she says, Miss Peterson, do you know why you're here? And I said, well, yeah, I drank. And she said, well, how much did you drink? I said, all of it. And she was like, all of what? A bottle? I said, I don't know. I said, I drank until I couldn't. I drank. She said, well, how many days were you drinking? I'm like, I don't know. All of them. I drank all of it for all of them because that's how I drink. And that was my last little dance with the devil. That was when I figured out that I had to not believe that I'm so well that I can have a drink ever again. There is not going to be a point for me where I'm well enough to have a cocktail because that's how it ends. But and then time quit mattering to me. I didn't know my new sobriety birthday for the first 2 years of this 5 because I didn't give a shit anymore. Those first few chips were so important to me. I would get my 30-day chip and I was like, yeah. But on round 2, this round, I didn't want another chip that I'd already had.
Yeah.
Like I didn't take a chip for the first 2 years. I didn't take a chip till the 3rd year. And I only knew my sobriety date because it was on my hospital paperwork. And I'm not even sure which of those days would count. When was I dry? when did I quit? So I've kind of got a random day in the middle of that I take a coin. But I don't care about my time the way I used to. The only thing that really matters to me is that I don't drink today. That's a win. Whether I get to be 6, who fucking knows? I could get wrapped up in and worrying about that, but I don't. Because when it came right down to it, that time didn't buy me anything. The fact that I'd been sober 2 years didn't stop me on the day that I drank.
Right on.
That guy that's been sober 36 years, the day he's too fucking solid in his head and he stops at the liquor store, that 36 years isn't going to buy him a minute.
Yeah.
What keeps me sober today is you. I'm doing something for my sobriety today by talking to you. And I'll do something else for my sobriety tomorrow. And that'll buy me another 15 fucking minutes.
Hell yeah.
So
Fuck
I
yeah.
appreciate you buying me these 15 minutes.
Well, I appreciate you doing the same for me, and I don't think there's a better way to end than what you just said, because those 2 years didn't buy you any extra time. I think that's fantastic, and that's a great note. Jared in the comments, he's coming up on a year next month. 2 months, August, but I think that's a great way to leave it at that. That's very powerful. No matter the time that you have, doesn't guarantee you anything. So, Kim, thank you, man. Thank you, Thank
It's
you.
cool, dude.
Thank you, dude, for doing this. It was freaking awesome. We had some people listening and commenting. That's always fun. Thank you so much. Please stay in contact. Jared says thank you so much. So Jared was here the whole time listening live. I just started doing this live thing, so hopefully that'll grow too. But thank you. And I wish you the very best. And let's catch up at year 6. And I like to do panels. I think you would be great for that. I like where you come from on these things. So stay in touch, take care of yourself, and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. You have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.